Welcome everybody to our 61st webinar of our series. Been having just a great time here. Looking forward to doing more for the rest of the year. This one is going to be focused on. I've only got lap replay in the title, although I think we're going to chat about not only the lap replay but also the dashboard simulation. They're kind of related in some ways, and I wanted to chat about both of them. This topic was kind of set a little bit when James Colburn had a webinar earlier a few weeks ago that he was talking about learning styles. And learning styles was something that, you can look at the squiggly lines, we can watch the videos, we can look at, channels reports and split reports and in tables and numbers. But one of the ones that James wanted to talk a little bit more about was was that visual learning style, where we actually look at different things and visually and see the differences. And with that, he used the example of the lap replay function, a function that we have not chatted about so far in our webinar series, at least in depth. And so when we chatted about that and we had the opening in order to have looking for a topic for today's webinar, I thought, you know what, let's dig into this a little bit more. It's a pretty basic function, but there are some neat little tips and tricks that we can talk about that not only will work inside of this function, but may help you in other parts as well. That's another thing that I try to do all the time is even if it's a fairly basic function, we try to give you little tips and tricks that are a little bit deeper than if you're a brand new user and you're just trying to figure out which functions are out there, but rather deeper tips and tricks where you can do things even better with the software. So we're going to do a little bit of that today as well. So keep that in mind. Again, thanks everybody for coming. We don't have a ton of links, but we will put some things down into the description box. Anything about this, any questions we have will be in the description box in the YouTube later as well. And so we'll look forward to that. Okay, let's slide up to the next slide. The next slide, just a little bit about me. I'm not going to spend much time on this. I've been a racer for a long time, mostly in off-road, and I ran a bunch of buggies. It's a little bit of truck stuff, but mostly buggies, all the way from short course racing to desert to to Baja and all of those kind of things. It really enjoyed it. Then went on towards the end of when I was driving to do some circle track stuff with this a couple other cars too, but this multicolored rabbit here with my friend Ron Hart as the car owner. Then my son started racing, and we went through karts, had a good time there. Bandoleros, Legends, did Spec Miata, won the very first national championship that Spec Miata when Spec Miata became a national class in SCCA, and we won that in 2006 at the Topeka runoffs, and then been working with AIM for gosh, a long time, but very focused with what I do here is for about 10 years now. And this is we normally have been doing these seminars out on the road, but with our little our issues here, worldwide pandemic, we've been doing a lot of these from here in the office. So that's a little bit about me and how I kind of got to where I am at and what we're doing here today. What we're going to talk about is we're just going to jump right into the two live data and the lap replay function. So let's open up. Let me reshare here and open and share. Oops, let's share this. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple of different things. We're using some, in this case, I'm going to be using some cart data, and I did want to kind of explain a little bit where I have used this function quite a bit, and it kind of ties together with James Colburn's learning styles. And the times that I've used this is, some people, again, they learn best by watching, right, and seeing a little bit more of a visual learner. And the times that I've used this a lot is when I've been working with junior drivers, especially in karting. I mean, and when I talk junior, some of the ones that I've been super successful in using this with are like the mini karts. I mean, these kids are 5 years old, right, and all the way up. But that's where I started to first use it, and I've noticed that they could understand that being faster in one area and not faster in the other, and the two little dots would start to separate, and that would that visual learning of that's really prevalent in that age group is large. So so I wanted to show it, and let's talk about it, and show you a few tricks on how to make it work better, and then we'll roll right into what kind of related to it, which is the dashboard simulation, and we'll use some different data, some of Matt's data for that as well. So, okay, let's here we got our normal measures graph, GPS map, kind of a home base the way that I like to see it, and with the GPS map over here, so we know where we're at. We're dragging back and forth. We've talked a little bit recently about colors and some of the other things. I like the red cursor. You see that here. I don't know if it's my old eyes or what, but when that is black, I tend to have a little struggle finding it, and you can change those colors pretty quickly by coming in and just changing the cursor color here under the plot settings, the icon right up here at the top corner. So that's just one of the little things that I do a lot, is change that. Another little thing that is pretty tied to that is when you change the cursor color, for whatever reason, the software the way it was written is the channel tags change to the same color. So if you have a dark background and you want to make it yellow or something, just keep in mind that it changes that color as well. Okay. David says he has an 8 and 11-year-old, and I think that's a perfect visual learning age, as well as I'm a visual learner. I actually find some value in some of the things we're going to talk about today as well. So it's not just for junior drivers, but it works for everybody. So let's bring up the lap replay function. The lap replay function is this guy right here, this little icon up here in the primary icon toolbar. You can get there also by hitting the Control and the F10 keypad combination. And so we're going to bring that up. I've already got it open down here. We're going to maximize that out just so we can see it well. The first thing that you need to know is the map that it's using is based on the map that you've built. I'm going to jump back to the measures graph really quickly. And if you were to open up the track map, that is the standard track map with the white background, typically with the white background, what you're going to see is the map that you've built with the map new function that we've talked about in the past here in these webinars. And that map right there is the map. Let me close that down. Is the map the same exact map that you're using here? And there's a couple little tricks that I always like to try to follow when I'm working anything to do with maps. Again, visual, very visual topic. The map that we're looking at here is let's say that it's oriented in a certain direction, right? Is that really the right thing? I have this thing that I call the dad view, and it comes from the karting world, where we all stand out on the fence and we watch it. And when we're talking to our kids or we're thinking about the track, we look out at the track and the map, the layout of the track, right? So what I like to do is try to make sure that the track map is rotated in such a way that it's the same way as you look at it from the paddock area. So the very quick and easy thing to change, if you've already built the map and you're going to use an existing one, what you can do is you can come up to the map button, and we've got the map manager. If you're going to build a brand new one, of course, it would be new, and then you can rotate this thing around, where if this is the paddock area and you're always driving around here, this is the way you always normally look at the track. Try to orient the map the same way inside your functionality. And so we're not going to build a new one this time. What we're going to do, though, is we are going to come into, if you've already built one and you're really happy with the segments, and yet it's just not rotated the way that maybe a visual learner can really learn about it, go back into your map and your map manager. And this happens to be the track that the track map we're looking with. Make sure you remember what the name of it was. And you can come in and you can modify that really quickly. There are some things you can't modify in the modify track map, but one of the things you can do is go ahead and use this little slider bar and slide this thing to such a direction that what I call the dad view, right? Or the over from the paddock out looking at the track. So this is what your visual learner will understand what the track looks like, even though the start finish line is over here in this particular case. But if the paddock is right here, this is where you would want that. Okay. And as soon as I click on OK, you can see that the start finish line is up here. And as soon as I click on OK, after I've rotated this, boom, and boom, you now have reoriented the track map that you're working with, right? That you're visualizing, and that is going to make it just a lot easier for these folks that are visual learners to even understand where you are, especially with the younger kids that you're trying to get them to understand a little bit more about the data, and this will help them understand that. Okay, so just getting it to look about right, and then on a couple other things about this function before we jump into the actual, look and feel of it. This function is one of the few in Ray Studio 2 software that doesn't flow with that thing, that phrase I use all the time, which is measures graph is boss, and that measures graph drives everything else. And a lot of these functions are all kind of tied together. This function here is pretty much standalone. If I were to come into the measures graph and do something here, put the cursor in a different spot, the lap replay is not affected by that. So this is just wanted to make sure everybody is pretty clear. It's kind of its own little standalone little routine, right? So if you were to zoom in on the measures graph on many other functions, that's all you would see in that second function, the GPS map. That's all you're seeing is the area that we've zoomed in on. Measures graph is boss, but in the lap replay function, it is pretty much standalone. So keep that in mind. It's not affected by some of the other things that are done in the software. The other thing that does still work, though, is if you've got a laptop, it's a little bit small, and you're in this function, you can still do the space bar and get rid of the sidebar and the control and space bar, and get rid of the Test Labs toolbar across the bottom. Oops, and I turned that back on. So you can make this thing basically full screen with the little bit of controls that you do need to run this particular function. So keep that in mind as you're using this as well. So then the next thing, I'm going to go ahead and turn those back on just so I have what I need to do as we play here. The next thing is we've got the track map now that we've got it rotated the way we kind of want it, and we've got a test that's open. And we can now, the whole key to this is to see where you're faster and slower, and understand the difference between the two. This particular function always opens to your very first lap that you did. Again, it's not affected by as much as the other functions by what you've already done. I've got several laps that have been disabled, but it still shows them in here. So keep that in mind. And select the lap that you might want to visualize. So I'm just going to pick this first full lap number 4, for in this case it's going to be the red dot, and then we've got a blue dot down here, and I'm just going to grab this 45-second lap 10. So lap 4 and lap 10. We've created those. We can change the colors if we wish of the two little dots by simply clicking on the little color button, just like you would change a channel in Measures Graph or in several other places. And I'm just going to pick the red that we already are. Okay. Then you can come over here, and there's some buttons across the bottom. This is how we position ourselves on the track with this function. And we're at the start, and we can quickly move forward. It's got 4 little chevrons and 2 little chevrons each way, and you can click on those and it jumps ahead, right? So we've jumped down the track, and then we can jump a little farther, go wherever we wish, come back, go slower around the track. And now all of a sudden, right here in this particular spot, the rest of these controls are telling us the position that we are down the track, and then it's showing us that the blue one is 34 feet. The distance between the two, distance 1 to 2, is 34 feet, and it gives you a graphical kind of a visual of that, and it's telling us that it's 0.72 seconds ahead of the other dot. Okay. And if you just hit the start button, this thing starts to play its way around. And the other thing that's kind of interesting is, and we'll just let this play around a little bit while I'm talking, we can come over and we can look at the graph, and we can see what the miles per hour is right where the dots are, and what the lateral G. Let's pause it for a second. And let's say lateral G is not typically we're always going to leave speed on there. But let's say that lateral G is not what I care about in this particular case. Maybe it's RPM. All you have to do is come into the list and pull down and select a different channel for this secondary channel. So we could actually change the top one too, so we have GPS speed and we have RPM. Let's go ahead and start it back up. And now we can see what our RPM is as the driver is driving around and the speed. And if anytime we want to pause it, we can see exactly what the speed was and the RPM of the two different drivers, and how far the one dot is ahead of the other dot, and the lap is ahead of the other lap, and the time difference as well. I've picked a couple laps here that are pretty different. So let's leave this 45 down here and let's pick a lap that's just a little bit closer. Let's pick this 46.151 and the 45, and then let's go ahead and start this one and watch it. And you can see that they're right on top of each other, and you kind of follow it around and you're looking for when does that set, there was a little bit of a separation there, and we can stop it right there. After turn one, the drivers are heading off into turn two, and there's a 5-foot difference between, with the blue one being ahead, and the blue one is the slightly quicker one in this particular case. The blue lap being slightly ahead by 5 feet and by 1/10 of a second. And we're 557 feet down the track. Okay. Pretty interesting that you can do this. And by the way, you notice that the speed is not scaled very well. If I were to come back in here to the measures graph, let's jump all the way back out. I was hoping that it was that maybe the scaling was a little bit different here, but it's not. So the scaling here, I'm not sure how to set that. I thought that was set by the scaling of the GPS speed. So that you can go around. Now there's a couple things that do not work the way that you might expect it to, and you're going to get used to it. But I would have hoped it would come up and I could just click up here in a certain area and the dots would jump up to there. It doesn't work that way. So if you want to get up there, you've got your high speed movements here, and just click on that real quickly, and you can pull yourself right up to that little straightaway right there. And now we're talking 6 feet different, with the blue one being ahead by about 1/10 of a second again. Okay, so you can't just click on the map and go, but it's fairly good. Okay. The other thing that I'm confident we'll get some questions on is okay, that's fine, and that's 1 lap inside of a session. You can't do 3 laps; it's 2 laps only. And but what about if I had a qualifying session and I have the race session, and I'm trying to see, or 2 teammates that I want to see? So I really want to see 2 different runs and bring those together and do those. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. If we come back out here to the test database, and since this is some data that we've used in previous webinars, I'm going to open up a second test from that same track. And now I've got the 2 different tests open. Let's go ahead and go back to the lap replay function. And this is one of the ways that you look at this, is now you see that the 2 tests are up here. And you can see that in both cases, I've got, again, it highlights the opening lap. I have the Sunday, July 12th race is pushed down, is clicked, and also the July 12th, and I could, pick a couple of laps. And then, yep, 5 and 6 of just the 12th, the July 12th race, and it puts the cursor, the dots right to the start finish line. Or on the bottom one, I can go ahead and just click on the June 28th, and it gives me a whole different list of laps. And so I can pick what looks like the best lap in that run. Is that a 46.6? Is that the best lap? Looks like it. Yeah, so best lap of this one is lap 10 on the 28th. And this one here was that 45. Both happen to be lap 10. That's an interesting coincidence. So we've got the same driver, same track, 3 weeks apart, and now let's go ahead and start that one up, and let's see where where things were a little quicker, a little slower, and try to understand it at this point. So right here in the middle of turn 1, we now have this red lap, which again is the quick one, and he's already about 9 feet ahead and about 0.17. Let's jump ahead a ways. Right up here, he's 0.2 of a second, almost 3, 19 feet ahead. My guess is it's probably going to stay about that, just judging from the right there. If we go back just a little bit, When we get to the middle of this corner, they looks like it's he's kind of caught up a little bit. The blue one is caught up a little bit in that section of the track. We can obviously see that in the measures graph and take a look at it, but this gives you that visual. So uh, the last thing I'd like to talk about here, and I'll take a look at the questions, and I've got a couple of polls that I'd like to do. We'll slip one of those here in just a moment when we do some questions. These channels, make sure that you're aware that the channels are there and that that it's something that you might want to see. Maybe it's you want to see exactly what the g-forces were in this corner around the speed as well. You know, speed's kind of our money channel, right? So you could come in here and maybe it's under braking. You'd like to see a visual of where the longitudinal brakes were, you know, longitudinal G's. So if we turn that on and we turn on our longitudinal G's here, and we can now see that as we kind of come into that braking zone, we can see how much, you know, each driver is on the brakes. This one here at 0.5, negative 0.5, so braking, and negative 0.3 at that same spot. So kind of interesting. Let me start up a poll, and then let me take a couple of questions as we've kind of moved our way down a little bit. I think what I want to do is this question here. Yeah, let's launch that, and right here. Well, we'll talk about why, and we'll start the poll, and then we'll jump in. Then we got a couple of questions in the Q&A. When analyzing your data, what functions do you use the most? This is one of those things, and we're, you know, lap replay is actually in this one. I think it's a function that's not used by too many folks, but we will see. We'll share these results in just a moment. If your function's not shown that you like to use, please list in the chat box. So let's answer a couple of questions here, and let's see if I can answer a couple of questions. Do you have two different test runs open under lap replay? Because it looks like only one under the measures toolbar. That question from David, I think, popped up before I actually did open up the second test. But in the over here, you can see that I now do have two. I think when that came, when he asked that question, there was just one here, and then it just showed the one here. So this is an area, though, when you do open up the test database and you open up multiples, it does show both of them here, and it does show both in the lap replay right here. So good question. At first, I was just showing a single session at first, and then we went to the second one. Eldon is asking, can you pick a zero reference position on the track to effectively creating a zero distance between the runs? Would allow you to align their positions or just look at one segment? The function is not powerful enough, Eldon. It's there is no, while the snap button is up here in the toolbar on top of it, which would do what you're wanting, either align or zoom in using some zoom tools. These tools are not working with this particular function when we have that function open. So it's pretty basic. What I have showed you is the power of it. It's just it's mainly a visual tool, and it's wanting to show you the distance of rollout at that particular time. You know, 20 seconds into the lap, where are you in the where are both of the dots on the track itself? So it's really meant to be a visual, you know, that learning style where you can actually see how much somebody's gained or lost on somebody. So not too much power beyond that in this particular function. I'm going to go ahead and close that poll. Let's end the polling, and let's share it, and let's take a look at what everybody is doing. Yeah, they're showing. So on YouTube, it doesn't show the results, so I like to try to read them out a little bit. Number one, by far, kind of the core functionality of most data analysis is the measures graph. We've 90% of you are using the measures graph as one of your favorite ones to use, the one that you use the most. The second one on that is the time compare bar. It's at the bottom of the measures graph, but it's a subset and certainly an important part. And we've talked about it a lot here in our webinar series, and very, very pleased that everybody is using that. That's at 56%. The next one is the channels report. Channels report being at 54%, just right behind that. Very very high usage, and the third one being the split report, fourth place. A third of this group of that are pretty closely tied together is the split report. Another one we've talked pretty good amount about here. Math channels being right in there at 33%, and engine RPM analysis at 12%, and then some of the rest of them. So I appreciate that. It's these continue to help us understand where we want to go with our webinar series. So thank you very much for taking that and taking a look and sharing those. Okay, got that out of the way. Let me move that over here. Let me set up the next one we will take. And it's going to be this one. Okay. I don't see any other questions. If you have any other questions about lap replay, let me know. But I knew this was a fairly basic one and it wouldn't take a ton of time to show you. So I thought, you know what, we're in this visual e-learning way of sharing information as a visual learner. What other function in our software that we haven't talked about a lot is that same look and feel? And as I was kind of tinkering around the last few days, I have no life, but the dashboard functionality is one that I wanted to talk about a little bit, and I think you'll like it. So let's go ahead and let's jump back out to our we'll bring the measures graph up first. Let's close these couple of tests. I think I want to do this with a different set of data. So let's wait for that to close. Oh boy, did it close. Let's open that back up and we will reshare that here in just a second. And there we go. Bring that back over here. Maximize that and open up the test that I want. And let's see, I'll reshare this in just a second. There we go. And reshare the screen. There we go. Okay. This is an interesting function, and so I brought up some of Matt's data from Watkins Glen, and this is called the dashboard. And the dashboard is as a visual learner, I think that there's some real value to this one as well. And the dashboard function is this icon that's right here up at the top. Display the dashboard simulation, and Control F11 will also bring that up as well. So you've got some data, right? And this in this particular case, it's more of a automotive side, obviously. And so what I wanted to do was come in and go through a few of the settings. Let's talk about it and see how to set it up. So you've opened it up, and then if we come in, you can right click, or you can right click. It brings up the settings. And when you it brings up this little dialog box, and it's asking you for, we've got these graphical elements. What channels of data do we want to be sent towards it? So I do want the speed to be enabled. GPS speed is fine. I want my RPM. What is the threshold? That number is not what it's going to scale at, here, but rather if it exceeds that, did you make a mistake, and we will cut it in half, kind of a number. So put that just a little bit above where you normally would, where you think your RPM is going to get to. And then the brake channel, do you want this brake bar to be active? And we do in this case, but it's not the logger temperature. So let's go ahead and find our brake pressure. And I should have thought this was set up. I could have maybe set it up ahead of time. And then our steering wheel. Yeah, we want this steering wheel to be turning when Matt is turning the steering wheel. So let's pick our steering value out of the list, and it is right there. This one here is if your steering wheel is lower than 0, when turning to the right, which is your way of doing this. So we'll pick one of those. Throttle, yes, so I want the throttle bar to be enabled, and no, it's not logger temperature. It's our throttle position. So let's find throttle right there. And do we want our gear position? And yes, we do, but it's not the logger temperature. So let's find our aim calculated gear. There we go. So let's apply and exit these values. And now for the visual learner that's trying to, you like to make sure and get even a better view. Yes, we can look at the map, see where we're at. That's the way I've got it set up. we can bring up certain channels, and I just brought up the channels that were included here just to make it a little easier to see. And then as we, I call it scrubbing, but if I just click the mouse here going up the front straightaway and we're coming down, and we're picking this, and I'm just scrubbing up here. Here we are. He's at a 6,096 RPM, 116 miles per hour. He's in 5th gear. And steering wheel is basically going straight. He's flat to the floor. And then he comes up and he hits the brakes, right? And some of us love to look at these graphs. Other ones want to see it on here. Maybe you have your SmartyCam video. If you don't have SmartyCam video, these are some of the graphical elements that are on the video, so this makes it kind of nice. But all of a sudden we can see how much brake he has given it, where he is on his RPM at that time, what gear position he's in. And let's scrub ahead a little bit more, and he's starting to turn the wheel around the turn 1 here at Watkins Glen, and you can see the speed at the apex and how much he turns. You can see that he had to turn back a little bit to catch the car. Is a little bit loose here right at the middle of the corner as he's starting to throttle up. And he's starting to add throttle to it. He had to give a little bit of correction, kind of a cool visual. And then of course he's put it into 4th gear as he come around that corner, and off he goes, right up the back straightaway. Slight bit of turning to the right. He's in 4th gear. As he's coming up the top of the hill, he shifts to 5th. And just another kind of a cool tool to get that visual learner to maybe understand a little bit more. Okay. Not the only thing, but maybe you don't have, and you just have to leave them turned off if you don't. This is another function that is not super powerful. It is what it is, right? We can, let me go back into the settings by right clicking and open it up. And you can disable some of these things like the steering or the throttle, but what you can't do is you can't remove the graphical element. It just doesn't work. So keep that in mind. And but it's a great tool for visual learners that might want a little bit more information to see than just the squiggly lines. So keep that in mind. Okay. Let's go ahead and have another poll here really quickly. If you have any other questions, make sure you add those in. There's a couple more things I want to show you, but we're going to wind this down here in just a little bit. Let's open up another poll, launch this poll. How long? This is one we haven't done. I think we did it once in the last month or so, but another one that I always find interesting, and it helps me understand and where we're building, some of this training for as we're going to get here into the deeper winter months, is data experience level. How long have you been using AIM Sports hardware? And don't make it just AIM Sports, but just your experience in the data world, right? Give me an idea and I'm watching this as it kind of goes here, and it's pretty darn spread across the board, which is kind of interesting. Did have a question from David as we're chatting here. Can you scale down the steering? For instance, if the input stays 2 degrees or less. This function here, what I have found, David, is the scaling here is set to the scaling level you have placed here. So I tested this with a couple of other data sets. I had one from our Mazda MX-5 Cup car where we were more looking at it from an engineering standpoint. So we had spindle angle. So the maximum was like 6 or 7 degrees right or left. And when I scaled that, by double clicking here with our automatic scaling, we could it automatically scaled the steering wheel position to about the same thing on the screen. So keep that in mind. Can steering be used for handlebars, motorcycles? It can, obviously, where the graphic is going to stay a steering wheel, but if you have a sensor on your handlebars and you're looking for how much it's moving, that is in degrees, right? It's you're turning it 20 degrees or whatever. The graphical element there will change that 20 degrees. So I think you can. It's going to be just a little bit odd if what you're looking for, but it certainly will get you the information you're after. Does dashboard display only 1 lap at a time? I believe that is true, but Jim, since you ask, let's I'll just click here into the measures graph. Let's go ahead and add another lap just for fun. Boom. I believe it's the initial lap is the one that it's going to show. So it's the first one you've shown. So it's only showing the one value, even though I've brought up two. So, and I believe what it is doing is triggering on the very first one that you open. Okay. In fact, if we come in here, we can make sure of that. It's showing the red lap, which is the upper one, and so it's showing the first one that you open. Okay. Good question, though. I think I'd played with that in the past, but I didn't remember the question for sure. But one of the things that I like to do is just give it a shot, right? So perfect. And we've got that poll that's running. Let's go ahead and end that and let's share it. And then we'll start to kind of wrap up in the polling, and let's share those results. And kind of interesting, isn't it? That and again, I read a few of these because YouTube doesn't actually show the graphics. So the number one user that we have here is 1 month to 6 months of experience, and a lot of people learning how to understand their data, and just finishing up the year. A lot of folks have purchased something during the end of the season. That one is at 15%. The next one is 15 plus years, the polar opposite, right? So at 13%, 15 plus years. Guys that are lifers in this, right, and understand it really well. 5 to 10 years is right up there at 13%, and 10 to 15 is at 9%. So we've got 26, 30, 35% of you have greater than 5 years of experience. And if you flip that around and total up the brand new users through the 5 years, it's a number that's just as big, if not a little bit bigger. So pretty split, pretty varied. That's why we work hard. That's why I always try to show a few things. Yeah, it's a fairly basic function, but I tried to show you as many little tips and tricks like we did with the lap replay, where we showed you how to rotate the map and maybe make it work a little bit easier for you. So keep that in mind as well. Always we understand that we have a quite a varied amount of people here, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's stop sharing those results and let's take this last question so far, and then we'll start to close this out. I got a really exciting next webinar for all of you that have a little bit more experience on top of it. We'll share with who that our guest is on Thursday. Is it possible for the lap replay function or other to overlay 2 laps and zoom in on the GPS position and show the differences in lines, i.e. show the kids the early apex is generally going to a slower exit speed? The yes, the lap replay function, and I don't have it open now, but you could have that lap replay function here. The trouble is they're not linked together as you're used to. So what you would need to do is move yourself with those buttons in the lap replay function up to, that spot where you want to be. Let's go ahead and open one up here really quickly. I'm sure I can do it, and we'll put it all on top of each other here, right? And let's say that let's say we want to jump down here with Matt's, and we're going to just move ahead to the middle of turn 1, let's say, right? So there is the lap replay function, and what you would want to do is go ahead and on this function, just have your measures graph open as well. And now all of a sudden you could, let me resize this and put this over here. You could do all sorts of different things. Then you could come in and have a second lap open, here and here, let's say, and zoom in far enough to see the difference in line that was happening right there versus the time differences you run. I've got the outlap on both of these. So let's pick 15 and a 17, and then move ourselves back forward again. Okay, so here you could see that it was 0.6. Darn it, let's do lap 3 and 4 so it matches. Let's just make it right, and then bring ourselves back forward. So I've got lap 3 and 4 in the lap replay, 3 and 4. And I've got lap 3 and 4 over here selected. You would even, if you were doing this, you would even select the same color. So lap 3 is red over here. So I would make sure that lap 3 was the red one on this one. Again, visual learners, it can be very helpful if you match up things like this. So lap 4 in this case is blue. 4, let's make it the blue lap. And now all of a sudden you have the cursor where it is here, the cursor where it is here, and you can actually see the difference in the line on that particular lap and see what's happening. So thank you for the question. I think that's how I would set it up, and then I would and maybe you get rid of the dashboard at this point, whatever works for you, and then set it up as a user profile. So that opens up maybe with the probably bring this up here like this, and then I would probably close the dashboard, since that's not a tool that you're really using a ton there. And then I would bring this guy down and bring this full width. And now all of a sudden you've got a screen here that can kind of work the way that you're after, right? And I'd save that as a user profile and be able to take a look at that. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that question. Okay, I have I had one other poll that I wanted to do, but I think I will skip that. So if you have any other questions, make sure you throw them in. We're going to go ahead and minimize out of that and jump back into the PowerPoint. Let me share that PowerPoint back up, and let's talk about where we're gonna head in the next webinar. We'll talk about that right after we talk about all of these webinars, as usual, are going into our YouTube page, and just growing like crazy. I've been working on that. I've been putting in the chapters and some ways that you can find the information easier, and I've got all of them done. I think about 10 back. Make sure you check some of the latest ones out, and you can go down across the scrub bar across the bottom. You can, if you just hover over it, it shows what we're talking about in the video at that point. I'm going to continue to do those. I'll do the new ones first, and then as I get a little bit of time, it virtually takes an hour to do it because I have to go through the entire thing and figure out what happened where and actually put those in. So it takes a little bit of time. So give me a little bit of leeway to continue to finish those up. Bruce asked the question as we're kind of finishing up. Oops, it went away on me. Let me see if I can see that since I was starting it. It was probably a question. So the dashboard would be able to show when like brakes were applied. Absolutely. If you have brake pressure or if you have longitudinal G and you set it up that way, you would actually see that value changing as you're applying your brakes. That is true, Bruce. Okay. So visit all of the other videos. We have currently 127 videos out there, 128 when this one goes up. So it's just tons of great information there on the site. Customer support. Boy, we've been this compressed season. It's been we've been out at the track a lot, right? Tons and tons of races happening all at the same time, and just glad that everybody's been able to be out and racing, and that our guys have been able to be out and be supporting you guys out at the racetrack. So if you haven't seen us there or you have a question, make sure you give us a call. That's what we do. There's an 800 number there. Give us a holler. And love to chat with you and resolve your problems. Email address for me at the end if you want to get directly to me and ask about this function or anything else we've talked about in the software in these webinars. So next, the next webinar, this is going to be a fun one. I've been looking forward to this. It's Jorge Seegers is going to be our guest on in just a couple of days, and Jorge is a top-notch race car data engineer, and he's written a couple of books. I pictured the second edition here of analysis techniques for race car data acquisition. Kind of going in a little bit of our, we're trying to get as many of these authors of books as we can to come join us and just chat about some of their engineering, their race car engineering side. As we did with Bob Knox there a couple of weeks ago. So Jorge is going to join us. He's going to talk about some kind of cool things that he does in the engineering. He's a professional, racing engineer. We're going to talk about some neat things that maybe you haven't thought about, and then of course we'll dig into some things about the book and have a very open question and answer period with you guys. So come join us on Thursday, October 29th, here in a couple of days. Jorge will be with us, and boy, I've been looking forward to it. Again, the book has been very valuable to me when I'm looking for some different topics. He is, again, a very good index in it. I can go out there, find different things. Tire temperatures have been one I've been using a lot lately, trying to learn a little bit about more of that. So, but he also has all sorts of other techniques that maybe aren't quite so technical that way as well. So hopefully you'll all come back and join us on Thursday when Jorge comes and join us. It'll be a great time. So the other thing is that, just so you know, on the next Tuesday, a week from today, is we will not have a webinar. It'll be our first one, first Tuesday, Thursday that we have skipped. It's election day here in the States, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So we will skip that one, and then of course. United States holiday with Thanksgiving. We will not have one on that day, and then we will also not have webinars on during the holidays, the Christmas, New Year's. Those 2 weeks there, we will not have any of them. So, but other than that, other than those holidays, we will continue straight on through the end of the year, and I've already sent out the note and resetting all of those and putting those on your calendar if you so desire to put those out that way. So that'll give you an idea of where we're going to head. And we've got some really good guests coming up that are kind of like Jorge here as well. So we've been having a good time. So we will continue to do that. And perfect. Let's go to our last slide. I appreciate everybody coming. I enjoy these a lot. This is a function we hadn't talked too much about. And when James talked about it, it was we should do that. And then I knew it was a fairly basic one, so we jumped in and did the dashboard simulation as well. Play with it some. If you haven't played with it much, go ahead and build it. Build your maps the way that you might want. Make sure it works for you, and give it a shot. And let us know, myself, and maybe Emiliano, software@aimsportline.com. If that function works the way you'd like it, and when do we bring that into Ray Studio 3, the analysis software in Ray Studio 3? Do you want something that's similar to that? Let us know. That would be great. Perfect. I appreciate you all coming. Thanks for coming. Look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. If you get a chance, let on your social medias, let everybody know that Jorge is going to be here on Thursday. That'll be a big one. A lot of people will get a kick out of listening to him. He's a super smart guy, and he did some webinars over the winter that I was able to join, and just learned a ton from him. So looking forward to having him here. Thanks again, everybody. I appreciate it. Looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. Everybody have a great next couple of days. Talk to you soon.